You might be looking to buy solar panels and thinking, which solar panels should I buy? What should I look for when comparing solar panels? Today, I'm going to be training you on what you should be asking your installer so you know the right questions to ask so you don't make any silly financial mistakes. I'm going to be looking at warranties. I'm going to be looking at the types of products and physically showing and demonstrating the difference between them all today so you can choose the right manufacturer for you, the right wattage, and more importantly, the right type of solar panel. I'm also going to be revealing the panels that I've got at my very own house. Let's go. Now, when you're on the ground, it's often difficult to get the perspective of how big or how small they are. I'm 6 foot tall, and these panels are 1.75 meters tall by 1.1 meters wide. They're a lot bigger than what we think, but they're actually still quite light. They weigh in, typically speaking, in between 20 and 25 kilos, considering all that's packed inside the middle of them. Now, you might also be thinking, how many solar panels do I need? As a rule of thumb, if a solar panel is 440 watts and it's of a reasonable efficiency, 22%, south-facing, you'll generate about 350 kilowatts per panel per year out of an individual panel. So if you've got a 3,500 kilowatt home usage, then 10 panels will generate about the same if you install that south-facing. Now, the further away from south that we go, or if we change the pitch angle, that can ultimately affect the generation. So when we say 440 watts, what we actually mean is the peak output, 440 watts being the most that solar panel can generate. This is under those standard test conditions. Now, the reality is, the closer to the equator we go, the more light we get. So in English terms, if you're down in Dorset, you're going to get a great deal of light. If you're up in Scotland, you're going to get less. The MCS, who's our regulator, actually break down the likely irradiance levels you're going to get depending upon your postcode region. So that's something you can actually calculate at the point of design. So if you're east-facing, west-facing, south-facing, you can essentially, overall the course of the year, predict how much solar your system's going to generate. One of the biggest mythbusters that I've come across is that solar panels need to have a clear sky in order to work. That's just not the reality. The reality is they need sunlight, daylight. So as long as it's bright and white, even if there's cloud coverage, a solar panel will still continue to operate. Now, with modern methods of manufacturing, these can also go to much lower light levels as well. So that really helps in the likes of winter time for your inverter, which is what's going to convert this power that the solar panels are generating. It enables it to convert it in much lower levels of light. So you get a much wider spectrum throughout the course of the year within which your solar panels can generate. Most solar panels and the majority of your generation, however, will be done between middle of March, start of March, middle of March, through to about the mid to end of October. Outside those winter months, you will always generate something on an average day, but it's unlikely to be supplying the full amount that you need for your home. I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. There are a couple of different manufacturing methods you need to be aware of. So before I explain the difference between the panels, I just wanted to quickly cap over this. We get a few different types of panel. The older type of panel is called polycrystalline. We kind of put that to one side for the minute. There's not very many of those panels out on the market. The next one is monocrystalline. Now, monocrystalline breaks down into two main manufacturing types. And I tell you this because I don't want you to waste your money. So, P-type is the older manufacturing method. Just do me a favour, and if an installer is trying to quote you for a P-type positively charged silicon wafer, just discount that from your order list. Instead, you want to be focusing on N-type, so much more modern manufacturing method, way better at lower light levels, so essentially they can fire up a lot earlier on. The warranties are a lot better, and the ethics of the solar panel are much better. I'll come on to that later. I often find on a lot of other content that's out there, you'll get installers that will compare the top 10 panels and the number one just happens to be the panel that they install. Instead, I'm not going to be giving you recommendations of the individual brand that you should install. Instead, I'm going to give you all the things you need to know to be able to select the right panel yourself. I'm going to go through this education process with you. The first panel that I've got with me here is a monofacial all black panel. Now, if you look up close, you can see the individual solar cells, but if you stand back from this, if you're stood on the ground, this will look like a black sheet of glass. Now, this has what's called a black backsheet. So between the individual cells, it's a sheet of black, essentially, rather than being a white backsheet. I'll come on to white backsheets in just a second. So this particular panel is a Jinko 440 watt N-type, so I mentioned that before for you, and you'll see the fact that it's got a black framework that's on the outside. Just a little side note, I've always thought that you don't want black solar panels, all black solar panels, and then a silver rail that goes underneath. Installers always scrimp on cost. It's only about another £3 or £4 a length for a black rail, and it just looks so much slicker when it's up on the roof when you go for an all black panel. So what does monofacial even mean? Well, let's have a look. As you can see at the back of the solar panel here, it's blank. It has nothing on the back of it. So monofacial effectively means one side. So only one side of the panels actually has the solar cells on it. So if we flip back again, you can now see the front of the panel. And what you'll see on there is the fact that you can see the solar cells right at the front of the panel only. So we would use monofacials, typically speaking, on in-roof solar systems and on-roof solar systems. Well, why? Well, on an in-roof solar system, if you think about it, your solar panel is going to be sitting pretty much on the back of the back sheet. So with the bifacial that I'll show you in a second, the idea is the light penetrates through and can make it to the back of the solar cells. If you're on an in-roof, it doesn't really have the opportunity to get through and back again, and therefore the rear cells you effectively may as well not have them. You're not going to get the performance uplift that the manufacturer designed them for. This is where this monofacial would come in. It has the solar cells on one side, and therefore it's going to be the most effective in that scenario. Now, if you're on roof, there's an argument to say you could go for either of these two, and normally then you would start comparing in terms of price point and efficiency. If you've got a much darker tile, a slate, a dark marley, for example, then you're going to be looking more monofacial because effectively the light can't get behind. So this is where you would use a monofacial. Now, if we have a look at the next one, this is a bifacial. If you saw a second ago on the monofacial, we had a white backsheet. You can see the fact that this is completely translucent, so you can see through them. Now, when you shine light, it ends up through the center of these solar cells here onto the back and refracts off the tiles, which ultimately can create generation not just from the front of the panel, but you can also get it from the rear of the panel as well. It's perfect for like a Van der Valk on roof, on a flat roof, for example, or on a ground mounted system. You're going to get bags of light that sits behind, and effectively you can get an uplift on the amount of generation that you're going to actually get from the solar panel as a result of this backsheet without taking up any more surface area. Now, if I was in roof with this, as you can imagine, if my frame works here, the light doesn't have the opportunity to come through, and therefore the rear of the solar panel doesn't really have that great opportunity to work. So most of the time, these are really best for those flat roof systems, as I mentioned earlier, like solar farms where you can get lots of light behind. You see them sitting a little bit higher. The reality is with an on-roof system, you're not going to see the performance tick of the 20–30% that the manufacturers state. Instead, your likely uplift is more like 5%. So at that point in time, you just need to bear it in your mind that most of the time, the uplifting cost of a bifacial versus a monofacial, which we just saw a second ago, you may well struggle with your return on investment. Typically speaking, for a bifacial solar panel, you're probably looking about an extra £30-ish per panel as an uplift on cost versus a monofacial. So something to bear in mind. If you can get your installer to quote it and it's a very similar price, then I'd probably be considering bifacial as the newer preferred technology, if I'm completely honest with you. The next one I want to have a quick look at is the white backsheet panel. We've just changed for the third time. You may well be sitting here a little bit confused with all these white back sheets, black back sheets, translucent back sheets. So I'm just going to cap over this again for you because you can see obviously different solar panel. The first solar panel we looked at was a monofacial black back sheet, but the back of it is a white back sheet. Panel number 2 was a bifacial solar panel with a translucent back sheet, i.e. you can see through it. So that's where we could see the solar cells on the back. Now this is a monofacial, so it's one-sided. The back of it is also a white back sheet, but the front of it, the solar cells sit upon a white back sheet, if you can see here. These are the budget end of the solar panel range. These are much cheaper. Now, most people, I'll be honest with you, only tend to go for these on, say, like a flat roof system where budget is key, or where they just want to save some money. And say, for example, the solar panels are facing a field, or there's no real risk of anybody ever seeing them or looking at them, or if you're just simply not bothered the way it's looking, then you might want to have a look at one of these. These are by far the most, the most cost-effective solar panel that you would want to go for. In terms of cost, you're probably looking 30 or 40% lower than a standard monofacial panel to purchase each unit. Bear in mind your labour cost and your railing cost doesn't get 30 or 40% lower when you're fitting individual solar panels. It's just the actual module itself that gets 30, 40% lower. And as solar panels are getting more commoditized, these prices are tightening up, but still you get way more bang for your buck. You'll often get higher wattages in this scenario, and that's one of the reasons that people tend to go for these white backsheet monofacial panels. So the next thing I want to go through is warranties and performance warranties versus product warranties. And these have a bit of disparity. So some of the cheaper ranges, like this one behind me, has a 12-year product warranty, but a 25-year performance warranty. The main difference between the two is a product warranty covers things like this black powder coated frame on the outside and the look and appearance of the panel itself to make sure none of it will fade essentially. Whereas the performance warranty is basically stating, look, this is what's going to happen after 25, 30 years and how the panel will perform. So it may well be the actual black frame may well grey out a little bit, but what we're saying is it'll still continue to perform at that point in time. So what you want to be looking at is most panels now, we're looking for about a 25-year product warranty and a 30-year performance warranty. That's very stereotypical in this scenario. If you're looking at a P-type, which I told you not to go for earlier, that'll be much, much shorter. You will see it from a mile off. Now with an N-type panel, typical degradation you would expect, that's how long it takes for the panel to degrade. It's typically speaking about 0.5% per year. So if you look after about 30 years, you probably expect somewhere in the region about 15% to be degraded. That's very typical for an N-type. And what that basically means is if it was 440 watts at 100%, you could just take 85% of that and that's where it would perform after 30 years time. Most solar panels now are a fit and forget technology. It's just about trying to choose the right panel for you. Now warranties on solar panels do vary slightly. What you want to make sure with a warranty is the fact that it's an insurance-backed warranty. Now, a lot of the big manufacturers, your top 5, Jinko, JA Solar, Longi, ACO, most of these manufacturers have an insurance-backed warranty. Always worth checking on the individual panels as well to make sure that they're insurance-backed warranty. In the event that they go out of business, the solar panel will be covered. Now, most solar panels will only cover the cost of the module. So let's say that solar panel fails in 20 years' time, the insurer will pay you out the cost of the one module that has failed. They will not cover the cost of any labour and they will not cover the cost of any scaffolding. On the mass majority of warranties, they may get the exception and not the rule, so I would check individual terms and conditions, but that tends to be the industry standard. So this is where it's very important to have a look at your installer's insurance. So they will often do an insurance-backed workmanship warranty that will cover the other ancillary parts, the person to swap it, any railing, if any clamps go, for example, after they've been there for 20 years, making sure that this is being covered as well, and the cost of scaffolding. Now, insurance-backed workmanship warranties normally vary from an industry minimum of 2 years all the way up to, normally have to pay a bit extra, but up to 10 years. So it's having a look at not just a 30-year warranty may only be covering you for the cost of 50 or 60 pounds and not the £1,000 it may well cost to erect the scaffolding and replace the panel. Now, if they can't get that model, so let's say they've made a new model in a few years' time, then they'll only reimburse you, as I mentioned, for the cost of one, not for the cost of replacing that whole array. This is where, say, insurance-backed workmanship warranties are very, very important when you're looking at having solar panels installed. And that leads me on to my next point. I don't wish to make it dire in any way, shape or form, but we've got to look at the ethics behind solar panels. Just a quick Google will indicate the fact that polysilicon ingots, which is these sheets that sit here, they essentially take a mineral from the ground, they put it in an ingot, so they burn it at really high temperatures and then they chop it into tiny little slices. to make these solar panels, where the original mineral where it comes from is very much been involved in slavery, unfortunately. Now, I do think after reading and studying this, the manufacturers probably didn't know, just the same as Tesco's might not know where the printing ink comes from a third-party manufacturer of their crisps. They're not going to go that far into detail. They might look at where the potatoes are made, but they're just not going to go that far down the line. I do feel like these manufacturers didn't necessarily know, or some of them may well have just turned a blind eye. So where you're getting these polysilicon ingots from, where it's sourced, because slavery is still a part of this industry, is a really important factor to consider. So when you're looking at a manufacturer, you want to be looking at two different initiatives that have been put in place. One of which is the Solar Stewardship Initiative, or SSI. You can just Google SSI. That'll give you a list of manufacturers that have basically signed themselves up to saying, look, we're going to source our polysilicon ethically and we're going to detail you all of our supply chain. The other one is ITS. Now, one of the big manufacturers, JA Solar, have basically said, well, look, we want to go the next step with our traceability. We want to be able to display everything to you. So they've got their own ITS traceable model, which essentially, again, displays all where the polysilicon ingot's from. So one thing I would ask you to do is when you're looking at an individual manufacturer, you're looking at where this polysilicon is coming from. All the solar panels we do, I know there's something I take really, really into consideration, but it's something that you should do too. Some customers ask me about AC panels, alternating current panels. Solar panels do just generate in DC. The word AC panels come from where manufacturers preform what's called a microinverter that sticks onto the back of a solar panel, and the inverting, instead of being done on the ground by an inverter, is actually done up at panel level and then carried down into AC. Now, for people that have shading, this can be really, really good. However, just approach AC panels with a little bit of caution in the back of your mind, from my experience, in that, again, similar position with the warranties, then AC panel or a microinverter, that microinverter manufacturer's insurance will only cover them for the cost of replacing the microinverter, often not the labour and the scaffolding. My suggestion is, where possible, if you don't have any shading, to be minimising the number of parts that are up on a roof to help you against future maintenance costs. If you've got heavy shading and microinverters is the only option, then it's just making sure that the insurance-backed workmanship warranties is going to cover you for all the other ancillary parts, so that you're properly covered in the event that one of those AC panels, microinverters on the back of a DC panel fails. Now for the juicy bit of information you've probably all been waiting for. What solar panels did I choose for my very own house? Well, I chose a solar panel, first of all, that was part of the Solar Stewardship Initiative at Jinko, who's one of the big manufacturers that are out there. I chose a monofacial because I'm going in roof, no point in a bifacial at this point in time. And I chose at the time a 420 watt panel. Now, there are a couple of different derivatives if you want to pay a little bit more now that are out in the market, 440s, 450s, sometimes even a couple of 460s that seem to be appearing on the market themselves. But the point of installation of mine, I chose what the biggest wattage was at the time, which was a 420 watt Jinko N-type all black Neo Tiger solar panel. I think they work fantastically well, and the reason why I chose these was the long warranty. The warranty is insurance backed by the manufacturer. It's got a 25-year durability warranty and a 30-year performance warranty that goes with those as well, and they worked very well with the optimization system that I've got on my roof. And the one big reason was actually making sure my wife was happy with them, with aesthetics. With the in-roof, they sit perfectly flush in line with my grey roof, and ultimately they look really flush, and they're an all black panel, so they look like one beautiful sheet of black glass when they're up there. They don't stand off in any way, shape or form. So those are the solar panels I've gone for. Still got questions about solar panels? Drop your comments below, and either myself or the team will do their best to be able to try and help you through making the right decision for you. Let's have a cap over this, the top 5 things to look for when comparing solar panels. So first of all is power output. As I mentioned, you want to be going somewhere between 420 and 460 watts, depending upon your budget. We want to look at efficiency of the individual solar panels. So most solar panels now, you're going to go way above the 20% efficiency mark. If it's below 20%, throw it in the bin. You want to have a look at the durability of the solar panel, and that's massively interlinked with the warranties that are associated. My recommendation is to go for a minimum of a 25-year product warranty and a 30-year performance warranty. I probably wouldn't consider a great deal else if I was you. Make sure you're assessing the ethics of the solar panel. So the Solar Stewardship Initiative, or if you're with JA Solar is the manufacturer, they have their own, the ITS. Make sure the polysilicon ingot is traceable so you're not supporting slavery. So if you've found today's video interesting, there are more videos on our channel. Feel free to have a good watch of those. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. It means a massive amount to myself and the team and helps us to produce some of this amazing content, keeping you informed. Thank you.